Hi, I'm Lucy Edwards with Matterport, and today I have two amazing guests. We're going to start with you, James. James Dwiggins, you are co-founder and CEO of NextHome. And now our own CEO, RJ Pittman, so CEO of Matterport. So here we are at Salesforce Towers. It's actually a really great place, beautiful view. Hope we can feature it in our video.
One of the non-foggy days in San Francisco.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And today is an amazing day, so lucky us. And I would love to start with you, James. Let's touch on your beautiful, successful journey. You were born into a real estate family, and then you moved along and moved away from traditional brokerage. You built your own dream place. So please share with us.
Yeah. I'm third generation. So my grandfather started his real estate company in 1967. I actually have a photo still of when he opened up his first office. Yeah, it was really actually founded I was going through some old photos the other day. He started his company back in 1967 in the Central Coast of California, down in San Luis Obispo, which is my hometown. And both my parents are in real estate as well. They both worked for his company, and then they started their own firm. So I grew up in a household of real estate brokers. I remember going all the way back when the MLS book was a thing. For those of you that don't know what that is, it was a printed book with all of the listings that were for sale. You had to get it once a month. And yeah, when you get into this business, you have a love for the industry. There's something about residential real estate that once you jump into it, it's exciting. It's showing an asset that everybody wants. And I've had the opportunity to both work at my parents' company early on. I got involved in prop tech for a while there. I started a couple tech companies that I sold both in 2001 and then 2006. I went to work for a real estate franchise in the Bay Area called Realty World, which was fun. I was unemployed at the time after I sold my company. And then one of the CEO there was a friend of mine. We were doing a lot of tech with him. He goes, "Would you get off the couch and go do something with your life again?" So I went to work there as the head of technology, eventually became the vice president, and then we eventually bought that company back in 2014. My partner and I, my current partner at NextHome. We also started our current real estate franchise in 2014. So we launched NextHome simultaneously to owning Realty World. Realty World had about 420 offices here in the Bay Area. It was a big firm. We launched NextHome, which was our national brand. We built both those companies up. We sold Realty World in 2020, right before COVID. That was totally accidental.
Lucky you.
Well, actually, if we held it a little longer, it would have been a different piece, because real estate went crazy in 2021.
That's right.
And then NextHome has been our baby since. And so we have now about 630 offices across the U.S., about 6,000 agents, and we do around $12 billion in real estate annually. So it's been fun to continue the trend in the industry, kind of my family's legacy, and then just keep doing what we love, which is just this beautiful industry and all the chaos that's in it today. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of that too.
I'm sure we will. But you make your grandpa proud.
I do think of him often. So
awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
That is a great success story. And that's very interesting. So you kept it elevated, that you are always involved and you are creating something new and you are moving along. And we'll talk about that as well, about the app that you have created. But I would like to move gears a little bit and talk about the CEO life, which I'm sure is not easy, all the juggling you have to do, and especially in today's very challenging environment. How do you, and we'll start with you this time, how do you see yourself with all the changes that's going on? How are you adjusting? How do you talk to your employees at Matterport? How do you prepare them to change their set of their mind to adjust to what's happening right now and to understand?
Yeah, I think we're in, perhaps unprecedented and even sometimes uncharted territory if you put all the layers of what's happening in the industry. Really a bit of the tech industry, certainly the real estate industry, the economy at large, whether it's inflation, interest rates, or the inflection point of real estate that perhaps we haven't seen in the last 40 years, right? And standing still or acting or trying to portray business as usual obviously is not a strategy. So we kind of go into two modes. But one is hyper-communication. The other layer to keep in mind on top of all this, we're emerging out of COVID. And so there's more companies than ever that are remote first. We are among them. We were an in-office company, for the first 8 years of Matterport. And within the first 6 months of COVID, everybody wanted out. They wanted back in the office as soon as you can, RJ, get us back in. We can't, the dining room table's not enough room for everybody. Can't fit the schoolwork with the kids and, the office work, for the company. But then a very interesting thing happened as COVID went on much longer than I think, had all expected. By the time we emerged from it, everybody wanted to stay remote, and they found a productivity groove that worked. And indeed, for Matterport, productivity was better than it had ever been. It was really remarkable to see over about a 2.5 year period how we figured that out. And so we're kind of hybrid, but really it's remote first. And you introduce then a whole lot of uncertainty into your industry or the economy, and you have to lead in an entirely different way. And that's what I'm talking about when I refer to hyper-communication, because it's hard. We're not in the same office. We're not at the same water cooler or in the break room, in the kitchenette, getting a coffee, where we can talk through some of these things just sort of as they happen in a natural way. And so I'm leading this company through the looking glass of a Zoom conference, right? And as are the rest of my leaders. And we're trying to figure out how to scale, grow, develop our leaders, deliver a strategy, get buy-in, and culture, chief among them. You got to invent a whole new set of tools for your toolbox to make that happen in this kind of environment. So that's how we've kind of, taken our approach. And I think, a little bit like the franchise model, what we've done is said, okay, well, wherever our employees have dispersed to, and they're all around the country, around the world, we're in basically every continent. But we have sort of team leaders that create these collaboration hubs, wherever geographically there's a group of people where we can get back together again and start working, elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder, makes a huge difference. And so, but it's tricky because we're not really set up to go open 45 different offices, for a company that's 500 people.
And there is no need for it.
There's no need, right? Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely changed too. I mean, I think people expect, I think about a lot of our team moved during COVID. Some of them didn't ask, they just did. And you love your people, so you're gonna make sure you keep them with you. It's interesting though, because if you think about the dynamics of it, I'll speak for California. It is less expensive. The cost of living is less for our people to be in other states. And just from a cost basis for the company, especially in a business that's having a lot of margin compression, we've hired most of our people out of California now, just being candid with you. Like we have a lot of people in Florida, North Carolina, and a lot of people move there because they're like, well, the house is 1/4 the cost and cost of living is way less. And so I think you have to think about how you adapt as a company to the way, your people, which is the most important part of an organization, are wanting to live their lives too. We were in an office, we went remote. We wanted to open it back up. We didn't. We eventually we just shut our corporate headquarters down last year. We just got rid of it altogether, and the whole company is remote on it. It does affect culture, though. I've noticed it does affect culture. There's an element of not that water cooler, that conversation. It's not quite the same thing, but then to your point, you have to make an effort to get people together when you can, and try to build that culture as much as possible. But I think people appreciate the fact they can live their life the way they want to and not have to be in the commute and everything else.
I was at the office yesterday, at our Sunnyvale office, and that was my first time. And it was a potluck day. Lucky me, I got tacos. And it was beautiful. First of all, quite a few people showed up because they know there are free tacos, and the bars.
You get realtors to show up to anything. It's put out free food, they'll show up.
Engineers as well.
Oh, engineers as well, exactly.
Indeed.
Everyone loved the tacos. And the ideas were bouncing, and people were talking, and people I had never met before. And I just felt like it's a family. After that lunch, I said, Peter, we're gonna get a condo here. We're moving.
Yes.
The atmosphere, the chemistry, the dynamic energy, and the passion. It was wonderful. It was really, really good. I had such a great experience. So thank you for building a great team and for keeping the office. It's a smaller office now, but.
Well, and what we did, I mean, the very space we're in here in Salesforce Tower, one of our longtime customers at Matterport is WeWork. And so we've Matterported and created the virtual tours for, I think, 650 locations around the world for them. And when we came out of COVID, we said, hey, maybe this is our pathway back to a hybrid scenario where we all have the WeWork Black Card, and it's kind of like an exclusive gym membership card in a way where any of our employees can drop into any of the WeWorks around the world anytime and get a desk, get a conference room, host a client or a customer, or get the team together for, could be tacos, could be anything. And this is one of our bigger base camp locations in San Francisco. We've got 150 plus people, maybe 200 in the Bay Area, and we can convene here. But then we pull up, and we're out of here at the end of the day, and it's we're not paying rent.
Right.
It's totally a pay-as-you-go model in that sense, and I think that's part of the future of work is finding that sort of hybrid that gives you for me. Walking down to this, location versus I was logging 2 to 3.5 hours a day in that commute from San Francisco to Sunnyvale if you catch the wrong side of, traffic. And I used to think that was just a badge of honor, part of the job. I've been doing that for 20 plus years, not realizing until really the COVID, forced situation where I was just extraordinarily more productive getting the time back, even though I was doing meetings in the car and all of that,
It's not the same.
Not the same at all.
No, it's not the same. It's like when on an airplane, they have Wi-Fi and it's great, but it's still, you're productive, but you're still not. It's not the same as being at your desk or your home.
So James, share with us your vision, how everything that's going on, all this noise with NAR and everything else that's happening, how is it affecting your agents? Because I meet a lot of, I have, my feet are on the ground. So I meet a lot of agents, I talk to a lot of people, and all the split feelings that they have and the confusion, how you deal with that, how you calm them down. And are you looking at your agents that, well, not that they're yours because you have franchisees, but how do you see the industry evolving around?
Yeah. So we took a very different approach than every single company in residential real estate. So I have a little bit of, I took several years of business law, and so I've always been fascinated with the legal industry. So I spent a few years before even the case went to trial looking at these lawsuits. And there was a point in time when the judge ruled that the cases were going to be done via per se versus rule of reason, that I knew these cases were going to go south. Everybody thought I was a little bit fringy, saying like, oh no, we're going to win. And I'm like, no, if you actually pay attention to this, we're not in a good spot on these cases. So September of last year, we called all of our franchise owners out to a meeting and said, we believe these cases are going to go south. This is what we think it will be. This is what the damages will be. And this is what we believe will end up being the recourse of this case. Essentially decoupling of compensation. There'll be changes in the way that some of the procedures are done. We do think buy-side representation agreements will become standardized. Candidly, we got it all right. And so we told them, we're going to train you on this behavior and these changes now, so you can retrain your 6,000 people. And if we're wrong, you are just better at your job.
Yep.
If we're right, this will not be a thing. You will be prepared for it. You'll know how this will operate. And so are we hedged correctly? When the trial went to trial, and obviously the jury decided, and then we got the judgment of $1.78 billion plus treble damages, so 5.6. Everyone's freaking out. I was like, yeah, that's not going to happen that way because NAR doesn't have that kind of money. Plaintiffs want to get money. Attorneys want to get paid. It's the only reason they're doing this anyway. So there'll be a settlement. Sure enough, there was. And so when we started to get the rules and we saw them come out, we were prepared. What we weren't prepared for was everybody else not being prepared. And so for us and our organization, everybody knew exactly how this was going to work. We're not doing cooperative compensation any further. There's no reason to. We can have the seller pay the buyer brokerage directly. We can do a concession to the buyer, and the buyer pay the agent their fees. We also realized that, and this is a great example of the industry not understanding where we're going. So I'm doing keynotes every week for the past 8 weeks, as you've seen me everywhere. the process of where we are, the industry hasn't moved in the right direction yet. It's starting to figure this out, but you can't. I'm gonna get hate mail for this, but cooperative compensation is actually harmful to the seller now, and they don't understand that. And I'll give you an example. So in this new world, you're a buyer, you're buying a piece of property. The agent's going to sit down with you. You're going to talk about your services, your fees. They're going to talk about what they need to be paid to do those things, and you're going to agree to a rate. That rate's going to be a variable, meaning every agent's going to have a different conversation depending on how good they are. Someone's going to agree to a rate at this fee or lower.
Yeah.
Cooperative compensation, the whole reason we got into this case was because the listing agent was charging the seller a set amount of compensation that they were paying to the buyer brokerage, regardless of how long they've been in the business or anything. Well, if you do that now, knowing the fact the buyer and the buyer agent agreed to some type of compensation, if I'm charging you a rate in advance and I tell the buyer agent what the seller is willing to pay, what if that amount is double what the actual buyer agent agreed to? You just harmed the seller. And so the industry is in this very weird spot.
Yeah,
it has not figured
interesting.
out how to move forward yet. Our approach has always been to over-communicate. You said hyper-communicate, same thing. The way I look at it is we tell people, we think it's going to be this. I don't know if I'm going to be right, but I want you to be prepared. And if we are, you'll be good. And if we're not, well, you're still educated on it.
Yep.
And if we get something wrong, that's okay too. You asked this question earlier about leadership, and I think it is hard to be a CEO. People think it's glamorous and it's like, oh, you get to fly on the airplanes and do all this stuff. And I'm like, no, you're in the hot seat on everything that you do. Every decision you make, you're responsible for. And unfortunately, I think as society, at least Americans, we're less forgiving on the fact that we don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. But I think you put yourself out there, and I think you try to help your people as best as possible. So from that context to where we are today, we hedged correctly. Now what we're trying to do is help the rest of the industry figure it out, and teaching people about the correct process so that we don't end up in more litigation, which is coming, and that we're not doing practices that are going to cause lawyers to go buy another yacht and boat, which is what they just did.
Yeah. And all the disruption as well, and the set of mind that is going wild.
But fear is such a, it's a paralysis. People get scared. They're scared of change. They want to hold on to the way things were. And so our industry is in this really sort of paralysis right now. They're wanting to do things the old way. There's lack of leadership in our business. You know this. There's so much lack of leadership in our business. And so, what I'm doing just personally is I'm trying to get out there and give people direction on where it can go. And here's the best part. I think we're sitting in the greatest opportunity ever right now. I genuinely look at the industry and I go, there's going to be people who know how to capitalize on where we are. We're certainly one of them. And there's going to be a lot of people that cannot figure out how to get to that next spot. And just like a free market, some people are going to make it, some people won't. The ones that are looking at this opportunity are going to do incredibly well. Here's one thing I know. Here's the fact. Sellers want to sell houses. Buyers want to buy houses. Sellers will continue to pay compensation to the buyer's agent because they understand that housing in this country is completely out of control. We don't have enough inventory. They've made a ton of money, and we're seeing that in the transactions. Is it going to come down on compensation? Probably a little bit. But the reality is deals need to get done, and people are going to figure out how to make that happen. And that's what's happening today.
Well, and it reminds me of my time before coming to Matterport, a long time in the tech industry. And one of my last tours of duty before Matterport was working at eBay. And here's a company that, I think we're 25 years now into eBay's existence. And they were all about the free market and all about this new medium called the internet as a way to create market efficiencies, right? You see it in every industry. There's been a major disruption for good due to the efficiencies of what technology and digitization can do. Financial services, remember the old days of the stock market? You'd read the stock quote in the newspaper and you'd maybe trade in the next day, or you'd try to compute
for those millennials, a newspaper is this thing that,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. This is like the pace we worked at. And of course now, it's fully digitized, it's real time, and you can trade your portfolio from your smartphone, and it's much more efficient, right? And so when you have efficient markets, those industries rise, right? And they accelerate. And at eBay, I watch this across every industry, and remarkably, there's quite a bit of real estate that trades hands in the eBay marketplace. Sure. You can buy land in Arizona and these very interesting modular homes and all sorts of stuff on eBay. It never ceases to amaze. And I actually think that, in real estate, it's kind of baffled me a bit. How is it that the largest asset class in the world 8 times over, $300 trillion asset class, has not been transformed more fully by the benefits and the market efficiencies of technology, right? And we're entrenched. We're entrenched in so many different constructs, whether it's MLS, NAR, the construct of buyers and sellers, and the ways of doing things, as you said, that people are very comfortable sticking with. Like, if it isn't broke, why try to fix it? But, on the other side, if you can cross that chasm, it could be so much better. And the technology doesn't replace the people, the agents and the brokers. It enables them. Mm-hmm. But the fear of the unknown could keep our feet, in concrete blocks, unless there is something that, it's usually a crisis that evokes a change. And maybe, that's what we harvest out of all of these things that are happening. And, it's a very dynamic time in real estate to capitalize on that, to move the industry forward.
Yeah, so it's funny. I think about some of the studies of where we are today. So in 2001, the use of a buyer's agent was 69% of the time. 2001, we were still on Netscape. Like, for anybody who want to look that up, it'll explain it. We weren't even at a place where homes were online to the degree that they are today.
That's right.
You think about that evolution. We've got Zillow, Homes.com, Realtor, there's all these portals. Everybody's got this access to information. Ironically, technology has helped our industry move forward in a lot of ways. But what's most interesting to me is now buyers use an agent 88% of the time. So you went from a place where you didn't have all this access to information. Now you do. Use of a realtor has gone up. And I think about that often. I go, what's the reason why we have more access to information, but we're using people more? I boil it down to 2 things. I do this in my keynotes. I talk about it. In 1960, dual income households in the United States was 30%. Today it's 60%. And think about that, right? So we're living in a place where both spouses have to work to make a living. And if you think about what we were willing to pay for, I'm going to use your tech analysis of, we use Uber, we use DoorDash, we pay for convenience.
Yep.
And I think what is happening and why the industry hasn't evolved to the degree, because lots of companies are trying to disrupt it, going, we can do this without an agent in the middle. And I'm not advocating that, but right. I think people forget the fact this is a very infrequent transaction. It's 2 to 3 times in someone's life, and they're going to spend everything they own to make that happen. And number 2 is we're all so damn busy that I want to just pay to have somebody take care of it. I'll go a step further with this, because there's been lots of companies that have come out in this space to provide less expensive rates to do it. Redfin being one that was founded in 2004. You can go to Help You Sell back in 1976. These models have been around forever, but none of them have taken shape. And I asked the same questions, like, well, what's the reason why these services haven't been used? Why is it that Glenn Kelman is brilliant? I love him dearly. He just switched his entire business model away from employee-based agents to traditional. Is because I think people want to pay a premium for full service, for convenience, all wrapped up. And that's one of the reasons why it continues to go that way. Do I think long-term that might change? Yeah, I do. I think long-term people will get more comfortable with more automation in the process. Mortgage being the first spot. Like, that's going to become a much more automated experience.
Yep, has to.
But I think about, I listen to these lawyers talk about how we can do the job better than a realtor. I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
Are you really going to go clean the kitchen? Are you really going to do 20 showings? Like, you stop it right now. So, I mean, I think it's very interesting to watch technology evolve and push, and then it bumps up to this. Real estate is a very emotional decision. You walk into a house. It's the feng shui of the property that you decide whether you like it or not, right? It's this thing where you want to.
Yep, it's everything. And
so I always question how far technology will push it before it backs up to, I want to talk to you about this property and tell me what you think.
And speaking of technology, I would love to ask you, RJ, with all the disruption, with everything going on, would you think that Matterport can help? And I don't like the word help, because agents don't need help. They're intelligent, professional.
Oh, no, they need help.
They don't.
No, they do. Yeah.
But how can we, as
Yeah.
Matterport, help agents to be better at what they do, to embrace the technology, not to be afraid of it? Because some of them are so scared of using anything extra.
I think for sure, the premise that Matterport is built on is helping everybody get a spatial understanding of a property. At its core, that's what Matterport can deliver. It's photorealistic, it's dimensionally accurate. It is a digital twin, as we say, of a physical property. And, just picking up a bit on the conversation, we also believe that it is a tool and an instrument for agents, home buyers, builders, designers, property managers, and the like. It's not a replacement. I'm with you on that. I think there's, a great, future in the brain power and the brain trust that's in the real estate ecosystem today. We just need to empower them with greater tools and also embrace the medium for the potential buyers, because I think generationally, I think of my kids, right, 13 and 15, absolutely born digital. They are coming in to spend power, in the next decade. And it's the largest spend power in the history of humanity. Bigger than baby boomers. This is a $10 to $12 trillion spend power. Mm-hmm. And they expect, full capability, analysis, insights, and information at their fingertips in real time. And they will, start at the digital doorstep, and end, in the physical doorstep is sort of our view. And so we've got to be ready to embrace that, be competitive, empower, again, all of the people in the ecosystem, agents and brokers alike, with this type of capability. And so our approach to it has been, as we continue to evolve our technology beyond just a virtual tour and a walkthrough, to now we have property intelligence. Mm-hmm. I have all of this property data. I got 3 million measurements that are taken with every Matterport. Yeah. No human can get that kind of insight. I can count the number of plug sockets and light fixtures.
You can automate appraisals.
So now I have this incredible digital system of record of, any property of any kind. It's not even dependent on it being a home, right? Commercial real estate, all of this. We've built it to be, property agnostic in this way. But then it's an enabler, right, that just helps to move this industry forward, where if an agent wants to get 20 more potential buyers into a property faster, well, you start by getting 1,000 of them into the Matterport virtual tour. Yeah. And the better that gets and the bigger our reach is in the digital medium, a lot of people used to think in the early days, they would say, it was the classic refrain, well, we don't think we want a Matterport of this property because then no one's going to show up at my open house. And I need to, meet them, trade business cards, build a relationship. If they don't like this house, I got 2 more down the street, this sort of thing, right? And it's not unreasonable premise for sure. But if you think about how and understand how the power of large networks work and efficient markets, it's the inverse, right? Because you can cast this wide net. The open house is open 24/7. You can have 1 million visitors in your property at the same time. There's no security risk. They're not going to traipse and wreck the floors, and it becomes this wonderful funnel.
Do you see? Because I'm totally fascinated by this. I've been looking a lot into augmented reality, especially with Apple Vision Pro and everything. I've been trying to think about what Matterport and Homes.com are going to do long term. Theorizing, not obviously in your boardroom, but. Is it fair to say that at some point there's a match there where the walkthrough with either Meta or Apple Vision Pro, where you're in this augmented reality where you're looking at the home and this is the furniture and this is the actual couch and you can buy that directly right now from Bloomingdale's, and is that a world we're moving towards with where you guys are heading potentially?
We're moving there on October 1st.
Okay.
So our fall release, as we call it, is announcing the next generation.
I was
of
not
the
in the
virtual
boardroom,
tour.
just to be clear.
Right, I know.
So.
That was perfect, tee up for me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But it's really true. We're excited about this, where we move from, the first generation of Matterport, which is a detailed replica of exactly how a space exists, into the next era, which is what is the potential for this property to become? Yeah, sure. And starts with I see the property furnished or staged in a certain way. I hit a button, I've defurnished it. And then once I have a blank canvas, I can start to envision what, I could do with it. It's also this is what it's gonna look like when you get the keys on day one and all that furniture is gone. And then the next button is not only furnish it, but here are the styles of design that I like: modern, minimalist. I collect antiques, whatever your thing might be. I want to see it configured with that style of furnishing. Even the artwork on the walls, you choose it, you see it, and then you go a step further. It's not just abstract concepts of furniture and artwork. It's restoration hardware. It's IKEA for my apartments on a budget or my college dorm room, but it's all sized and configured to fit the actual geometry of your property. And yes, it is. I like it in the gray colorways. Nope, I like the earthy tones. I select, add to cart, check out, and buy. So cool. And it's all there waiting for you either the day you move in or the day you
What about building in? Sorry, I have to take that. Yeah. What about building in the idea of it can analyze that this is a certain style counter, and if we were to dump $40,000 into this remodel, it could be worth $150,000 more. So like what I call the assessment of the property, the investment into it, and the upleg potential on the property.
Yes. And so a couple of exciting things with Matterport, because it's not just a collection of fancy photos, it's not a video, it's an actual data set, right? So we're enumerating, codifying everything that you see in the visual walkthrough into a data set. And then let's apply any sorts of rules-based systems, algorithms for valuation, strategies for what pieces of a property should be renovated. And also, because we have pretty advanced computer vision, we can assess the condition of the property and the condition of the furnishings, right? So you know where you might want to be spending your time next. And maybe not even just the conditions, but what are the kind of dated materials that we just don't see in new houses if you want to maximize the value. We can politely, propose.
You're like, gold's outdated. We got to get something else in here.
And it's got to be fluid and dynamic, because what was once old and out of style will come back in some, modern twist. But that's the great thing when you have, really a data platform to work with. This is a very flexible, adaptable, everlasting system.
How are we going to get agents to do, this is partially a joke, because I'm like, it's the second most requested thing by buyers is a floor plan. Like 70% of listings don't even have a floor plan on it. It drives me nuts. Are you guys planning on trying to, how are you trying to get adoption on that?
You should be in the marketing team. Like this is a perfect candid tee-up. We said, look, we've got all these, great dimensions perfectly mapped out in the property in 3D. Let's not be too, narrow-minded to think that that's the only D. Like, you hit a button and a 2D floor plan now comes out of the property automatically, and it's free. And that's the cool thing. And then you can actually customize it. Like if you have special names for the rooms, like this is the drawing room or, your billiards room, you want to label it this way. You're not stuck with whatever comes back from a floor plan company. You just go right into this very simple visual editor, and it's got the dimensions of all the rooms pre-calculated. You label it, and then you can even arrange your virtual guided tour, and you can go to rooms by name. Like, I'd love to see the gourmet kitchen, and then, from there, let's go see the media room or the billiard room. And you're now talking in, identified, labeled pieces of the property, kind of like you would if you were physically there.
I love it. That's going to be
really
so
cool. We think a lot about that. And by the way, just one last piece on that front of 2D that you might find interesting. Remember, every Matterport is shot in 4K HDR imagery. It's very high, like out of the Pro 3 camera, it's 130, 140 megapixels. So this is great digital medium.
Yeah.
And in 3D, you have every pose, every angle, every viewpoint in every room. So you also have, therefore, the possibility to get a camera angle of HT photography for the property as well. And so one of the things we've done is, train some of our algorithms on I think 1,000 homes that were shot by professional photographers to study the camera angles that are the ones that really, are those beauty shots.
Does it remove the agent taking a picture of the window frame of their car, like they actually getting out of?
Yeah, that's the great thing, because there's nobody taking a photo. These are all we can algorithmically go in and extract every professional pose in 3D. And here's the great thing: so I can give you 100 photos and give you 1,000, however many you want. Right. And if you, as an agent, are out in the field going, we didn't get the ADU in the back. Like, how did we, miss? Oh, you can just go into the Matterport and go, well, let me get a couple more angles of this photo or that photo. If you had Matterported it, you have access to the property. You have access to the potential camera angles or an extra, couple of photos of the billiard room without having to go back on location, send the photographer out and, cost you more money. Point of it all being like, can you start with something like this Matterport 3D data set and then create the property marketing?
Yeah, all of it, top to bottom.
Yeah,
makes total sense. Yeah, it's going to be very rich content for homes.com, obviously. So
yeah, and look, our view on that is, sure, it's great. It's great for homes, but our strategy has always been, and is actually a very important tenet of the partnership with homes going forward is, the greater we can push the virtue and promise of virtual tours and 3D into the industry, the better. And not just us, right? So we remain and will remain an open ecosystem to every platform, homes included, but everybody else too. Yeah. And the other part is, this is such a massive category, right? I mean, buildings in general, 4 billion buildings in the world. It's crazy. Twice as many buildings on planet Earth as there are live active websites on the internet today. So think about that for a minute. Like, this is
it's a huge market,
a great market to crack into, and it can't be done by one Matterport, one partnership, or of any kind. We need an army of companies doing what we're doing to put a dent in this and get it to become a little bit more of a standard and a built-in versus a nice to have. I think we've been pretty successful so far, but I describe it as a drop in the ocean, really, as to like what we got to do next.
It should be a standard on every listing. It just should be. The fact it's not. But
I would like to take over for a moment.
Sorry,
please.
We're having a buddy moment here, so.
No, it's fabulous. I love it. Just a few words about the app that you had designed. Would like to talk about that. It can be just a teaser. We're launching a podcast at Matterport, so would love to have you as a guest.
Yeah,
and then
sure.
It can be devoted to the app. So the app RAYSE that you created, share with us.
Yeah, so RAYSE is an app that was designed to help agents articulate their value. I'll start with this. There was a study we did earlier this year. We surveyed 1,000 buyers and we asked them a question. A lot of questions. One of the questions was, how much time do you think your agent spends helping you buy a house? 26% of them said 10 hours or less, and 46% said 15 hours or less. That number couldn't be further from reality on what actually is happening. The average amount of time an agent spends with a buyer is between 80 to 100 hours helping them buy a house. So we have, reality versus perception. We recognize that if we were to track what a realtor does and expose that in this collaborative sort of gamified experience, that the buyer would appreciate more of what they do. And in this decoupled world, they're going to be questioning, why am I paying you this much? What do you do for this amount of money, et cetera? So we spend a lot of time studying what buyers and sellers think about the process. We recognize that the average real estate transaction is about 56 days, takes around 87 hours to do on the buy side. There's about 114 activities and about 202 outcomes that occur on the deal. Most people only see a small amount of it because most of what the realtor does is behind closed doors. So I'll give you an example. If I'm going to show you a property, you're going to call a listing agent, set the appointment, maybe have a discussion, drive to the appointment, have the showing, go back to the driveway, talk about it, call the listing agent, get a copy of the disclosure, read the disclosure, boil that down in an email, send it to you. All of that on average takes between 2 to 3 hours to do, but the buyer only sees the time in which you were at the property. If we build like a lawyer, I'm not suggesting that, but we build like a lawyer, actually consumers would pay more. We recognize that there was all this technology for us to aggregate all of that in an automated fashion. Your phone will tell you your distance from where you are to where you're going. We can track time. We can integrate with your calendar to see your appointments. We can integrate with the MLS to see geolocation of properties that you're hitting. We can pull data from the transaction management system. We've got the metadata for the phone call log. All of that gets aggregated into this experience. We expose that to the buyer. They go, oh, here's the 150 things my agent's going to do over the next 56 days. As the agent's doing them, it's updating them automatically. So now it's this collaborative experience, and we boil all that down into a closing report.
That's great.
It's the timing of it is perfect. I mean, like we couldn't have timed it better. And we've raised about $7.2 million to get the company off the ground, literally money from the entire real estate industry to do it. And we launched the product kind of like, we did a soft beta in August, but launched the product this month. And it's a brokerage product, and we've had now 300 real estate brokerages sign up in 14 days.
Not just agents.
The agents have to get it through the company.
Oh, okay.
But in 14 days, we put 300 real estate companies on it. So
Fantastic.
it's a very interesting.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, the team's worked really hard. We have a lot of stuff to do, but we're at about 50% automation on the app. We'll be around 70% in our V2, which is the end of next month. And our process is we've identified how to make it something that the agent spends about a minute or two a day. It just works off of existing tech platforms, a lot of API integrations and things. So it's really clever. The timing's really good. We take it to a company and they all are like, we need this now. Like, we need to get our agents using this now. So we're excited about where it can go. It's fun to be able to provide something of value to the industry.
And that is great. And that is something interesting that you are doing with your life, besides just working with agents and fighting NAR and creating new paths, what your franchisees can do. So that is
What's
exciting.
cool is this is an industry product too. I actually love the fact that this is a product that's literally being adopted by most of the major players in residential real estate or have all invested in it. So I actually am excited about it being an industry platform, not something just for NextHome. So
Thank you.
I think it's great for home buyers, and really in a way too, it's good for all agents, even the sell side, because yes, it's a tool that's going to be great for, probably overall, in a way, project management for the agent doing the thing, but the transparency that it provides as well is quite interesting. And I could imagine, in some ways, some of the savvier users of this product and agents might even gamify it. And there could be some friendly competition, who's putting in more work, who's doing smarter work, and maybe there's some shared best practices if they publish their.
That's V3.
If you think of like Venmo, right? It's person-to-person payment, but it's got a social component, like my cousin paid their friend this for lawn mowing or whatever, and those are always fascinating just to see, well, what are people paying for, whom and how much are they paying, like what kind of deal do they get, and you see people executing in their craft. It's quite interesting.
What's fascinating about it is it's a blue ocean of data that we've never aggregated before in the industry. So if you think about it, Amazon tracks everything that the drivers are doing, everything. And in real estate, we have independent contractors. I have no idea what 6,000 people are doing on a daily basis. But what if, to your point, which is the rabbit hole when you go down this, it's fun. What if I had the ability to see everything the workforce is doing? What are my top 10% of my people doing? Where are they spending their money? What are their activities? What are their habits versus my bottom 90? How do we create training platforms around that?
You just flip around, the app starts telling, coaching you.
Literally,
and it becomes a, time manager.
What's cool about it is when we had our investors working with us on it, they were like, this is really big. And one of the investors was like, you need to think about where you can take this. And so we spent a bunch of time looking outside of the industry. And we recognized that the software we built, it's complicated. I'm not going to undermine the sophistication of it, but it's agnostic to industry. It's 50% of it sits on your phone. So we could take it to insurance, or we can even use having wedding planners track what they do. It's just interesting where we're planning to take the product. And we're moving into our Series A very soon, and we're planning to do a pretty significant infusion to do that.
You can imagine a whole host of these large scale gig economy, labor networks, same thing. How am I optimizing an organization? They've got some of that, data in their apps and stuff, but not to a full-fledged workflow of like exactly what everybody's doing. Super interesting.
It's exciting. It is.
Very, very cool.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
That's
Appreciate
another
that.
success story in
It's
one
early.
interview.
We have a long way to go,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we're certainly on a
But
very
you
and
good
running.
launched
track.
it, so
Yeah.
that is
We are on a
absolutely
very good track.
fabulous. I would like to finish on a completely different note, on a personal note. Both of you, you have families, you have children. How do you balance your lifestyle? You have a 3-year-old, you have teenagers, which I'm not sure what's better. How you build your day and how you look forward to. I actually saw a photo of you with your daughter in a crib. So here we go. That was a shocker.
That was 3 years ago now. Yeah.
So that is amazing. You know, you are a father. You are you engineer. You are a realtor. How you balance it all? Let's start with you, James.
I mean, if I'm being honest with you, I don't. I think this question is, I always get asked these questions, and if I'm being truthful, and I find some people aren't, it's very hard to balance it. Entrepreneurs talk about it, but the truth is we all struggle with it. Typically, people that are very, people that are very entrepreneurial, our minds don't shut off. They don't. And we're always trying to find that balance and work. I would tell you right now, it's very hard. So I've got 4 companies, trying to get a new one off the ground. My lovely wife who's here is, she certainly picks up a significant amount of, the time with our daughter. It's a struggle. But I have lots of friends who are successful, and, we always give stock answers. The truth is we're always struggling to find balance. I don't think there is such a thing if you're this entrepreneurial person, because it's like the minute you get to, I don't know, you'll jump in here, but I find the minute you get to some level of, what's the word? Like if you get to this one spot where everything's calm, you get uncomfortable, and then you have to do something else again to like get back into the chaos. At least for me, it's that way. I think that if you have a goal, though, I will say this, like we have a plan and a goal that we're working towards. And part of it's to make sure my daughter has everything that she has and opportunities in her life. I think that when people always ask, what's the definition to success? I always respond with, what are you willing to give up? To me, that's the only answer. So you can't have all of this without doing something or giving up something. And honestly, that will change, and it will change by time.
But then you cherish every moment you spend with your daughter.
I got
every
in at 12:30 last
cherished.
night. I flew in. I got in at 12:30 last night. This morning, I got into her crib with her, and I laid with her, and it was the greatest 5 minutes of my day. But the truth is, I would love to spend more time. It's hard when you're running companies. I don't know if anybody has the magic formula. I don't know. You've done a lot more than I have. You tell me.
No, there's no magic formula. In fact, it's funny. My wife and I have been together now almost 25 years, 21 years of marriage. And for a long time, we were both working parents, but single, at the time. And she's super driven career woman. I was doing startup, then big tech. And it's always on, right? 24/7. We loved it. And we said, there's no way we could have kids. There's no way we'd have room. We would be terrible. So let's not do it. We're having fun. This is great. If it's not broke, why try to fix it? And this is how it went, almost until we got right to the edge of like, well, it is kind of now or never. Like you get to a certain age and you don't have a choice after that and might miss the window. And we just, I don't know, decided to go for it. And you just don't know what you might be missing out on, right? And so we have 2 great kids, 15-year-old daughter, 13-year-old son, 8th and 10th grade now. And what a topsy-turvy, gift that, brought us. And it absolutely blew everything up. As we were putting it off for a long time, knowing that was coming. The one thing that I will say that I did, and I can't say that it's the silver bullet, because you got to put in the work. The only way, to win in any game, to be great at what you do, is you've got to put in the work. And that means putting in the time. Sure, try to be smart about it, but I don't think of it as, and when the kids came late enough, in my career that I knew how it all worked, I wasn't going to attack it from a work-life balance point of view. It's more like work-life integration or work-life harmony. And so I brought my kids into the front row seat of what I do. And they saw it, and they would see me, especially as we got to COVID and everything was at home, school, work, everything. They know my entire board of directors. They know my senior management team. They've been in my staff meetings. They've been in board meetings, not officially in the meetings, but buzzing in and out of the room.
Yeah.
And I invite them in to listen because it's an extraordinary front row. I think if I was a young entrepreneur, budding entrepreneur like I was back in the day, if I had access to that perspective, just to be a fly on the wall, just to listen. And what I realized as I was doing that as a teachable moment for them, like, let them, learn. I then realized it was more than that, right? And that they could appreciate what it takes to run a company, to do these kind of things. And now they're smart enough to know the magnitude of the conversations and the tough decisions that dad is wrestling with. Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. And so they all adapt, and we kind of bring the work with us. And I'm not the guy on holiday on the family vacation where I'm doiling away on the laptop and like dad's not part of any of the fun. But they also understand like when, hey, I got to step out for a couple hours and we got to, and my son will act like my chief of staff. Like, Dad, what can I do? I got your calendar right here. You got to make sure that you go and meet with Bernard. You got a meeting in 10 minutes and, it's crossed 3 time zones. So get that done. And then we've got this other customer over here. Make sure. And by the way, tell them about the new Pro 3 camera or whatever. Like, this was my son, at age 10, he was doing this. And now they, no surprise, my daughter's locked in. She wants to be a computer scientist. She wants to start a company. She wants to be in the game. And we'll see what my son finally decides he's going to do as he gets up there. But and I have no designs on what they do, but I just want to expose them to it. And kids are way better than us in this way. They are so adaptable, resilient, and I only wish I would have dropped them in that deeper end of the pool.
I love that
sooner.
integration part. Instead of balance, is integration. Bring them into your world. It's really good advice.
Yeah. I had the kids. I'll just tell one last Matterport. So we, every company has that bring your kids to work day thing. Well, and they were 7 and 9, I think, at the time. So first year coming into Matterport, and there's all kinds of fun and games and things to do, and you get to use a Matterport and go make a little digital twin and see how it all works. See the factory where we make the cameras. We'll get to work on the line to kind of snap a piece of it together, all this fun stuff. Now, my kids came in with their own PowerPoint presentation, and it was like a 5-point breakdown of all of the things that need work in the product experience. And they did it on their own. They were both, capture experts by this time, and they presented not off to the side, it's to the entire senior management of the company. And I filmed this because I said, one day, this is going to be, an interesting thing for you guys to look back on, because you'll get to an age, and it's the age they're at right now, where the anxiety as a teenager, you wouldn't be caught dead going in front of,
they don't know any better.
They don't know any better.
Kids. Yeah.
And they were so good and so pure. And I got the founder and chief scientist in the room, and they're talking about, well, the quality of the product isn't so good if you're not, using it in absolute perfect conditions. And I see them all taking notes and writing down. I'm like, half of the management team wouldn't have the courage to say this, to the leaders. But it was so great. And like I say, I discovered, quite early, like just how remarkably adaptable they become. And if I tried to separate the two, I think they would have been the ones that got the short end of the stick, really, because they missed that opportunity.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, RJ.
Fun stuff.
That is absolutely great.
And look, life is short. I got to have some kind of succession plan. Like, not doing this forever. I might bring up next generation and get them into the game. So why not?
So we'll bring your daughter to work with.
You can take her. So.
Yeah, we'd love it for sure. Matterport is a fun house for sure.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you
for
very,
having me.
very much.
Appreciate
It was an amazing conversation, and you really enjoyed it between two of you.
It was awesome.
So I'm just happy that I was
Always
able
a pleasure,
to put
Lucy.
it together.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Lucy.
All the best, everybody. Cheers.